Hello, criminal justice class. I am here today with Officer Aaron Kennedy from the Farmington Police Department. Officer Kennedy has been a certified Taser instructor, and so we're going to be examining the Taser today. Officer Kennedy?
Sure. So today I'm going to be discussing the Taser, also known as a CEW, which stands for Conducted Energy Weapon. The Taser was developed in 1974 by a gentleman named Jack Cover. It is a non-lethal weapon. It is a good tool for law enforcement to have. Instead of having to resort to deadly force with our firearms, this is another tool in our toolbox that can help us reach our goal without having to take human life.
Officer, have you ever had to use your Taser?
I have, multiple times. However, it has not always been effective. The effectiveness of a Taser is caused by the spread of the darts. So the electricity travels between probes inside the cartridges. If the cartridges don't spread more than 12 inches, you don't achieve what we call NMI, neuromuscular incapacitation, meaning you don't get that full lockup and contraction of the muscles. Therefore, the Taser is not going to stop the person that you've used it on. I've yet to have an effective use of a Taser on a person. The only thing it's been effective on that I've used it on is a dog. We had a vicious dog. Instead of shooting it, we tased it, and it locked the dog up long enough we could go over there and put a collar on the dog and safely remove it from the area. I've used it multiple times on people. Again, not always effective due to, if it's in the wintertime and they're wearing thick clothing, the darts may not penetrate the clothing and make contact with the skin. I've had it to where one dart stuck in the shoulder and the other one stuck in the stomach, and it wasn't a great enough spread to completely lock the person up. Therefore, they were able to pull the dart out, and it was completely ineffective.
So, do you only have one chance, like in that situation? If when it doesn't work, then what happens? Can you?
This particular Taser model is the X2, and it has two separate cartridges. So if I deploy the left cartridge and I don't get a good enough spread, I can squeeze the trigger again and deploy the right cartridge and hopefully get a greater spread. Also, these Tasers have what's called a drive stun feature, meaning when the Taser is turned on, you have a button, and once the button is depressed, you can make contact with the skin and use this as another point of contact. Example, if I deploy the Taser and two darts don't make a good enough spread, but they make contact, I can follow up with a drive stun at the lower part of the body. And that third point of contact acts as another probe, giving me a greater than 12-inch spread, and it will immediately lock someone up. So you do have two chances with this, sometimes three, depending on if you can get close enough to the person.
Well, now it certainly looks terrifying. Is it life-threatening?
It is not. It is not life-threatening. When you're certified to carry a Taser, you have to be exposed, meaning you have to be tased. You have to know what it feels like. I have been tased twice. It is not something I'd like to do again. It is a very, very painful experience. However, what you're feeling is voltage, not amperes. So amps are what kill you. Volts are not. So the Taser X2 delivers anywhere from 800 to 1,000 volts of electricity at 19 pulses per second. So the Taser cycles 5 seconds when the trigger is pulled. It runs for 5 seconds, so you're getting 19 pulses per second of electricity hitting your body. For those who have a pacemaker, that is something we can take into effect. There are safety guidelines we follow. We typically do not use a Taser on small, like low muscle mass population, pregnant women, children, or the elderly. We don't use a Taser on those. Typically, the Taser's best target area is the back because it's a large muscle group and it's away from the heart. If that's not effective or that's not an option, in law enforcement we have to give or take what we're given. I have used it on the front of people, but you try to be mindful of the dart to heart distance. And with this particular Taser model, it shows you, once the safety is turned off, it shows you, as you can see here on the wall, the top dart will go here, the bottom dart will go where the bottom laser is blinking. So whenever we turn the Taser on before the trigger is even pressed, we already have an idea of where the darts are going to go. So it's not like we're just shooting without knowing.
Right. Now, what you said you have not successfully used it on anyone before.
Right.
So just real quick here, just give us a brief of how it missed or how it what.
Okay. So one particular thing we take into effect, obviously working with partners, is before we deploy the taser, we will draw the taser and yell, "Taser, taser, taser," before we squeeze the trigger. That lets my fellow officers know I'm about to deploy the taser. If you're hands-on with the suspect, disengage and get away. There have been instances where one dart will hit the suspect, the top one hits the suspect, the second one hits the officer. If they're touching each other, sorry about that. If they're touching each other when the taser is deployed, both of them are going to receive the shock, and it's a greater than 12-inch spread because they're both getting one of the darts. Mm-hmm. So you got to be very mindful of where your partners are. Example, we had a guy who was failing to comply, would not get out of the car one night. He had a gun in the passenger seat. He was stiffening his body up. We were trying to extract him from the vehicle. He would not get out. I went around to the passenger side of the car, and my sergeant gave the command to tase him. They disengaged. Popped him with a taser. It was not a successful connection. One hit the shoulder, one hit his pants leg, but it didn't make contact with the skin. There's about 70 feet total of wire cooled up. Once it's expanded out, it's only 25 feet. But when it's coiled up, that wire can shock you if you grab hold of it. Now, you're not going to feel the same exposure as if you received a shot with the darts. But if you grab the wires, you're going to feel a little tingle. Once I deployed the taser, all that excess wire fell into the guy's lap that was in the car. Typically, once the taser is running, you can touch the person's skin without receiving a shock. So we try to utilize those 5 seconds of incapacitation to get the suspect in custody. My partners grabbed the suspect and also grabbed hold of the wire, and both of them received a jolt and had to let go and jump back. And in return, the suspect took off in his vehicle, and a pursuit followed. But it was quite hilarious because they said, "Well, you're supposed to tase him, not me." And I was like, "Well, y'all grabbed the wires, That's why I yelled taser, taser, taser." But other than that, no, that's been the funniest experience. We all laughed about it afterwards, but it didn't feel the same as if they were exposed, but it is enough to be a tingle. You're gonna know you grabbed something you weren't supposed to.
Definitely not fun.
No, not fun at all.
Yeah.
Not fun at all.
Well, Officer Kennedy, I appreciate your time. And,
sure.
Thank you for sharing the information on the taser.
Thank you for asking me. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your service.
Yes, ma'am.